Alright, so I'm back on this project again. So I got the crank all cleaned up. Got it in. I got the bearings swapped out. They're in the block. I swapped them out in my caps. So I got some little plasti-gauge in there. It's a little red. I think it's like a little piece of wax or something or other. But anyway, so what that's going to do is we're going to check our clearance on the bearings to make sure that we are within spec. I believe the clearance on these is 2 to 5 thousandths or 3 to 5 thousandths. I'll verify it and put it on the screen right here because I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head. So we're going to put all these caps in, and then we're going to torque them down, and then after we torque them down we're going to take them back off, and we're going to use the little gauge that's on the plasti-gauge to verify our clearance, and then we know if we can keep going. I'm pretty confident I'm not going to have any problems. I'm just doing it just to do it, to make sure, because this is kind of expensive and I don't want to have a problem. So there's other ways you can do this. You can measure them. Like you put the caps on. You can do it with or without the bearings, and you're going to torque it down 130 foot-pounds. Then you're going to use the dial bore gauge to check your clearance. I would have done that, but I don't trust the crappy measuring stuff that I bought, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do it this way. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be fine because I measured the crank and it was within spec and everything's all standard, and I didn't have any problems with the main bearings. I only had a problem with the rod bearing, so I don't think I'm going to have an issue. I'm just, like I say, I'm just checking it just to check it. I don't like using plasti-gauge because it never sticks to the crank with me. It always sticks to the bearing, and then I have a problem getting it off. So I bought new main bearing bolts, or main cap bolts, whatever you want to call them. I'm using the old ones to do this test, and then I'll put the new ones on when I finish assembling it. So I got these bolts from Thoroughbred Diesel. They had them. And they had the OEM ones. So I had those 12 valve rods. I had the bushings pressed out. I had new bushings installed and bored. I had them shot peened, and I got them back. And the way the bushings were pressed in, if you look at a normal rod, they're perfectly even. These ones were just a smidge to one side. They pressed them into like one side, and then they kind of just, well, I don't know, filed it down or took the edge off. And then it should be all the way in, but it's like a 1/16 of an inch over, and it might not make a difference, but it bothers me. So I don't really want to use them. And then I put the ARP bolts in there, and they measure where they're supposed to on the big end, and one direction is like 1/1000th off. So you get the rod, and then you have the parting line. So this way and this way measure fine, but this way measures off about 1/1000th to 1.5 thousandths. So it's like I know you're supposed to size them, and just based on it, I'm just cutting my losses on them. They might be perfectly fine, but I don't know, and I don't want to take the risk. So I'm just putting the stock rods back in this, and I'm gonna go from there, because I don't want to take the risk on something happening and then I'm out all the money and whatever. So like I say, I'm just going with the stock rods and the stock rod bolts. I have ARP bolts, which is what I put in the 12 valve rods, but I believe that they kind of distorted it, so I don't want to put them in the new one on the regular ones, because to be perfectly honest, I'm not doing a high horsepower build. I'm just doing a regular stock build, and what was in there should be fine. I think if I put the ARP rod bolts in there, it might distort it again, and I don't want to run the risk of distorting it and then having to send them out and have more work done, because this thing's costing enough as it is. So I'm just gonna cut my loss and go with the regular ones. So let's see. Crankshaft main cap bolts have to be torqued in 3 steps. First step is 37 foot-pounds, second step is 59 foot-pounds, and then rotate 90 degrees. So let's start at 37. So I got one of these Harbor Freight ones, torque wrenches, does the angles and stuff too. It's digital. I don't know, it seems to work alright for me. I kind of like it. You're 7. I'm gonna do my phone. Here it is. 7 to 59. All right, so I'll just set it to 90 degrees. Let's see if this works. I haven't tried the problem I'm going to have is going to be not rolling this thing. It's like right now I got this up on a block on the front because it I can't get the crank in because these bolts are in the way, so I had to take those off. Or this off. So let's put this up against this beam so it won't roll. See what you're looking at. Yeah. Alright. So the way that this works is this torque wrench goes from like 12.5 to 250 foot-pounds or something like that. So I'm gonna just shut off. So this won't start registering the degrees until it senses 12.5, and then once it hits 12.5 and it knows you're pulling on it, then it starts detecting the degrees, and it keeps shutting off, and you have to actually leave it on a level surface before you turn it on, so it calibrates every time. So you either put it in the box or on something flat, and it'll calibrate. So, yeah, so about there is going to be 90, right? See how close it gets. That's pretty good. Tell you what, that's 155 Newton meters. I was going to say Newton meters. Whatever. So, whenever I'm done doing the angle, it does that flashing thing. And you gotta hit the power button to reset the angle. So, I'm sure I read it in the book, but I just can't remember. I haven't had to use it for the angles, so. Oops. All right. Here's that. So, now that I went through all that, we have to take it back off and then do it again. There, I'll shut off. See? Stuck to the bearing. Hate that. Bearing. It's gonna be fun to get off. Yeah, bearing. Half and half. Mostly bearing. Yeah. Let's see. What do we got? We have a little bit more than 3 thousandths. There's no way on earth you're gonna see what this is. Or maybe. See? Just a little bit more than 3. So I'll look at the rest of them and they all should be pretty good. If that's what we got. So I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna clean this crap up, and I'm going to lubricate these bearings, and then I'm gonna retorque them all the way I just did, and then I'll be done putting the crank and the main bearings in. Alright, so I used some of this, and I literally, on a rag, and I wiped it right off of the journal here. I gotta see if this is safe to use on the bearing, because it literally just wipes it right off. The bearing, I don't know, maybe I should have put a little oil on the bearing first. I'm not sure. I haven't used plasti-gauge very much. I've used it once or twice, but I don't rebuild engines every day. I mean, I kind of thought everything was going to be fine anyway, so part of me wanted to just not use it at all, but I did anyway. So, I mean, this is kind of the crappy part of using plasti-gauge. So I got to see if this works on the bearings. If I can use it on the bearings without damaging them, I'm just going to use it on the bearings, because it literally just wiped it right off of this. I was scraping it with my finger, and I couldn't get it to come off. It just kind of was smearing it. A little bit of this gone. So maybe when I do the rod bearings, I think I'll try to oil the bearings a little bit, see if it'll help with the sticking. Alright, so I took one of the old bearings and I kind of soaked it in this a little bit, and I just left it on there. I kept wiping it off, I kept putting it on, wiping it off, and it didn't seem to do anything to it. So I tried one and it actually worked very well. Just put a little bit on a rag, the rag, and just kind of wiped it right off. Now I was digging at that with my fingernail and I could not get that to come off. It was gonna be a nightmare if I had to scrape that off. So I just keep that in mind. I mean, hopefully I didn't ruin these. I don't think I did, but yeah. So I got me some Ultra Slick. I keep forgetting that the camera's at an angle. I'm not. So anyway, little Ultra Slick, new main cap bolts. So I'm probably gonna try to prop this up a little bit to get some of this Ultra Slick on the bearing underneath, and then I'll coat the top bearings, slap them on, retorque them, and then we should be done. Yeah, so I'm gonna do that. I won't bore you with it. In case you're wondering how I'm propping that crank back up, a little ratchet strap on a ratchet strap on a one of them. So America. Anyway, so yeah, so I got a little room under each one. I'm gonna shoot some of that Ultra Slick in there and then put it back down, and away we go. So when you're putting these bearings in, you want to make sure that they're flush on each side. You don't want one side sticking up, one side down. You want them flush. And if there is any protrusion, you want it to be equally protruding on both sides. I saw a video of a guy rebuilding a DT466, and he referred to the part that sticks up as the crush, and he says you want to be able to just catch it with your fingernail. So if you can just catch it with your fingernail on both sides, it's exactly where it's supposed to be, is what he said. This I didn't really notice. I think I mean, it's there a little bit on this, so that's what I was shooting for. So if you're doing this, I would shoot for the ability to catch the edge of the bearing on both sides with your fingernail. So like before you clamp it down, you want to be able to catch this with your fingernail on both sides, and you can on this one. So that's about how you want it, I think.